Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. Sarah here, and I am going to do a swatching video. I'll just say from the outset, it probably looks as if my voice isn't matching my hand movements. I'm recording a voiceover because the sound from the original video when I was talking and swatching at the same time just didn't sound great, and I couldn't fix it. So instead, I'm gonna start again and just talk through the swatches that I did. This swatching video, I'm swatching my grey and grey adjacent inks and using my new dip pen, which I'm in love with, which is the Pilot Iro-Utsushi in a fine point. I also have these little Kokoyo cards that I'll be swatching on. So the first ink that I am swatching is the Lamy Obsidian. I think the line name is T53 ink, so Lamy T53 Obsidian. This is almost a black. It's probably the only black bottled ink I have, but I included it because it kind of has tinges of grey and I think it can be within the theme. I will say as a side note, I do have just the Lamy black cartridges, the standard ones, and I actually find that to be a really nice black, and in my extra fine Lamy All-Star, it flows really nicely and isn't scratchy at all. So if you are looking for some black cartridges, I definitely recommend that one. So you can see when it first goes down it looks really black, but looking on this swatch card here you can see in the lighter bits there are kind of hints of grey. I think as it dries there's almost hints of blue as well. I am a really big fan of almost black inks, so I'm always on the lookout for things like that, and for me this does fall into that pardon me, category. The reason I decided to do a thing of swatching greys is I found when I first was entering the fountain pen world, all the colours so overwhelming. In my day-to-day, I'd always reach for a black pen over a blue, so I thought maybe trying different greys could be like a bit of an entry point to mixed success. Some greys I just find are too light to write with for longer journaling, but I do find them helpful in other spreads, and then other ones I really have fallen in love with. I can also really, really highly recommend this dip pen. I still have it, but a Moonman dip pen, and I just found the amount of ink it was putting on the page just to be too much. I like that this is a fine nib for me. It gives a truer reflection of what it would look like when I journal with it. This pen does come in a medium nib as well, which is definitely on my list. Looking closely at the swatch there, you can see as it dries, there are the hints of blue or maybe even green and grey, but it is definitely a dark, almost black ink. I'm going to do 7 inks in total for this swatching. This is probably the darkest one. I think there's one more that's pretty dark, and then the rest are kind of lighter greys, going from warm to cool and back again. Because I'm doing the voiceover, I need to remember which one comes next. So next is 2 Pilot Iro-Shizuku, pardon me, inks, that's right. So I have 2 Pilot Iro-Shizuku greys. I have Kiri-Sami and Fuyusiogon, still really not good with the pronunciations. This first one is Kiri-Sami. I think this is a really beautiful grey ink. It's definitely on the warmer side, which I really, really like. I haven't written with this in a pen, but I'm really intrigued to see what it looks like. I hope it isn't too light. It may be, but I think it's really beautiful. I kind of love the warmth to it. It almost looks like it has like a little bit of like pink in it, in those lighter bits. I just think it's gorgeous. While I'm writing out the name, I also just want to say I know a lot of people use cotton buds to do the swatches. I was absolutely hating it. I've moved to a paintbrush, which I am liking a bit more. But I think if you want to see what, in my opinion, are the best swatches ever, is Leanne from Leanne Likes uses, I think she said it was like something like a bit of kind of stainless steel, but like Tupperware, like a container that she used to have in her kid's lunchbox, and she ink droppers onto the page and then kind of does this swirl with it. And as she lifts up the stainless steel cup and you see the ink pool, it is just beautiful. So bit of a fangirl Ramble. There you go. That was me doing the stainless steel cup and the swirl. A bit ahead of my voiceover. Bit of a fangirl ramble, but if you love ink swatching videos, I would highly, highly recommend her channel. There's just something so mesmerizing about it, but also just the way she describes inks and her fountain pens. Like, her videos in general are great, but the swirl of that cup and her ink swatches are incredible. Next up is the Pilot Iro-Utsushi Fuyu Seiyugun. This is a cooler grey. I have written with this grey before. It gets really beautiful shading, like incredible, especially in a wider nib. It was a little bit too light for me for journal entries though. Once I'd done like a full page, I just wanted it to be that little bit darker. So I definitely think I will have a use for it. The shading is so incredible, but it just, it didn't work. And it's funny because in that swatch there, it looks darker, but when I've had it in two different pens, and in the pen, it just, I think because it shades so nicely, where the ink pools, it's darker, but in the moments or the bits that it doesn't, it just was a bit, that touch too light. You can see as I'm writing with it now, maybe that's a truer representation. And even if you compare it then to the two inks above, the Obsidian, obviously really clear and legible, but I think even the Kirisami is, it's still I'd say a light-ish medium grey, but to me, that's clearer on the page compared to the one underneath. But I think both of those Pilot greys are beautiful. Pilot Iro-Utsushi inks in general are just incredible. I think that it's very understandable why so many people are such a fan of them, because they're just beautiful, beautiful inks. So I guess just looking at the warmth, and I call that a cool grey, but I think there's definitely some blue in there as well, which is stunning. But I think you see the blue more in the swatch compared to the written sample. This one is the other dark ink I have in this video. This is Robert Oster Thunderstorm, which is a really, really dark grey. As I said before, really like the almost blacks, and that's definitely in that category for me. I think some people would read it as black, especially in like an extra fine. But if you were to kind of, instead of just glancing but look over it properly, it actually isn't. It's got these kind of bluey greys part of it as well. I think this ink flows really, really nicely. I've had it in an extra fine pen, not scratchy at all. It's just really beautiful. In an extra fine, didn't get shading or anything like that, and it's a non-sheening ink, but I think just the color of it is beautiful. Interestingly, when I was swatching the Lamy first, I thought that had blue undertones, but now that I've done the Thunderstorm, the Lamy looks really green to me. It's funny how, when you're comparing it to different things within the same spectrum, how it can change. Looking at those two now, the Lamy doesn't look like it has any blue at all. It looks like it's almost like a green-black in that swatch, which is really cool. The Thunderstorm in the swatch, the circle, probably looks bluer than it does in a pen. You can see there that's what I mean by almost black. There you go. And we'll just write out the sample here too. And while I do that, I'll just have a quick sip of tea. I'm not used to talking so much, so I find my voice gets a bit dry and croaky, and it's not because I'm like tired or sick. I think it's just talking for a long period of time. So next up is, this ink really needs no introduction. This is Sailor Studio 123. This is a chromo shading ink. I actually haven't inked this up. I just got this sample, but I've seen so many people write with it. Chromo shading means that when it shades, it can actually shade in different hues and different colors. So it'll go down as a grey ink, but then watch what happens as it dries. It's just stunning. There's pinks, there's purples, there's greys, there's greens. If you look up at the top of the circle, because that's drying first, It's that beautiful pinky purple, and then down the bottom there's greys and then little bits of green. This ink is just beautiful. It's just incredible. I know a lot of people who like 123 also really like Sailor Studio 224, which I definitely want to try. I am really intrigued what this is like to write with. I'm definitely going to ink it up, but I'm interested for anyone, if anyone watching has used this, do you find it's better in a thicker nib, like a medium or a broad? First of all, to get the chromo shading, but is it too light if you put it in an extra fine? If you have any experience and can let me know, please do, because it's definitely on my list to ink up next, probably in my January rotation. But I could just stare at that swatch all day long. It's just stunning. Ah, so beautiful. Sailor inks are so incredible. They're just beautiful. 2 more inks to go. The next one is another ink from an Asian company, from Colorverse, who are from South Korea, I'm pretty sure. This Colorverse ink, Colorverse, sometimes they release their inks in pairs, and it's like themed. So the ink, I'm just showing the chromo shading on my paper towel from the Sailor. You can see the rings of green. It's so incredible. So Colorverse can and do release their inks in like themes and pairs. So this Colorverse is Colorverse Matter, and when it was originally released, it comes in a bottle with matter and antimatter. I don't have the bottles, just the samples, and I just got matter, but it's on my list I would like to experience maybe buying like a pair of Colorverse inks, how they intend for them to be sold, and maybe spending a month like journaling just in those 2 colors to see what the relationship's like. I think that could be a really fun and interesting exercise. So the first thing that jumps out at me about this Colorverse ink is I wanted to say that it was warm, but as I look at it more, it's a different type of warm grey, and I wonder if it almost has like a hint of brown. If you look at the Kirisami, and you know, for me, the warmth of it's coming from like a pinky purple, I don't see the same for the matter. And when I was first doing that brush stroke, and if you look in the middle of the, as I say that, I put the pen in front of it, the middle of that swatch where it's a bit heavier, I think there's some browns there, which is really interesting. I haven't seen a grey like that before. It also makes me intrigued as to then what antimatter would look like next to it. So definitely on the warmer side of a grey for me, but I think it's really beautiful. In this fine nib, it does go down a little bit light, but I think it is legible, kind of like the Kirisami. You know, I'm not straining to read that. As it dries, I wonder if actually as it goes down, it's warmer, and then as it dries, does it get a touch cooler? And you can see it's almost like a little hint of green along the edge of that darker bit there as well. It's so funny how you can say that inks are similar, but then you look at the 2 of them together and they're so different also. That's the incredible thing about fountain pen ink. Lucky last is Ferris Wheel Press April Showers. I must confess, I got this because I like the look of the grey. I had no idea it was a shimmer ink, and you'll see in a moment I realize, and I get super excited. This is a grey ink. I would say on the cooler side, medium grey. It's not dark, and it has a silver shimmer. In my samples, you won't see tons of the shimmer because I didn't realize it was a shimmer ink when I purchased it. Silly me. But regardless of that, the shimmer was a happy surprise. I think it's really beautiful. I like that even in the lighter bit of the sample, it's light but not too light. Again, you can see that's a bit of a theme for me. I like inks that I can actually write in. Like, I don't want them to just look beautiful in a swatch. I want them to look beautiful as I'm journaling on a page. I'm just waiting to see. I don't remember if it's on this campus card. I realize that it's got a shimmer, or it's when I look at the swatch. I can't believe I didn't realize. I will definitely re-swatch it again once I've agitated the sample bottle a bit more, because I think I only got a little bit of shimmer in when I did that extra bit over the top. But, you know, comparing them again, it would be easy for me to say, okay, that's a cool grey. But you look at it next to the Sailor, you look at it next to the Fuyu Siu Gun, and it's different again. I wonder if that would be, I guess, quote unquote, the truest grey. Like, there aren't blues that jump out at me, there aren't purples or pinks. It's almost, yeah, just that the cooler grey and then like a little bit of black, and that's what makes that silver shimmer look so beautiful, because it does read as true silver. So I'm just kind of just trying to show you the swatch cards next to the swatches in Nostalgia there. Can really recommend these cards as well. I got them off the Desk Bandit for I think like $4.50, and it came with tons of them, and they're great and they hold the ink swatch really well. So just doing some close-ups now. I know in a second I discover that it's shimmer and I get pretty excited and do a close-up, but while I'm waiting for previous Sarah to discover that, current day Sarah would love to know what your favourite greys are, and if you've used any of these, do you find a preference in that wider nib because they are a bit lighter? Really interested in your experiences, and if you have liked this video, if you could like and subscribe, that'd be great. And there you go, to finish off, there is that little bit of silver shimmer coming through. It's just beautiful. I can't wait to swatch it properly. Thank you so much for hanging with me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this swatching video, and I will see you guys all again soon.